Oh, we're live.
We are live. We are live. We are
live.
And we are back. As always, the On the Bump podcast. Tonight, we are doing it live. We are going to do it
live.
So there's no edits, no issues. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us. I believe the way it's constructed is what you're seeing a couple seconds behind on YouTube, but you're still seeing it same pace as everyone else. And when you ask a question, we will get to your question as soon as possible. As you can see, I have this nifty thing that if you want to ask a question, I could pop your question right up on the screen, and we will get to it. We're also going to get to the podcast like we normally would. Just come out of the gate with our usual topics, our free agent negotiations, everything we usually do. But if you have a question, we will get to that question. So
ask away.
Pretty excited about this new thing. I'd like to do these more live because it seems like a very simple setup for us.
It's basically like our regular podcast. I feel like we could do this, for pregame at a ball game. We could set up live from the bleachers at Yankee Stadium and be ready to go.
Or even for games that we have, like games that are going on live, and if we want to do like a live watch party, I've been trying to do those. So we have options now. We definitely have options. All right. Todd, how's it going?
It's going, exciting, maybe not exciting. That might be too strong of a word, but we got some legit baseball news this week with winter meetings that are now virtual, Rule 5 draft, which brings some interesting prospects into the mix, with teams kind of swapping young players here and there. But usually nothing major comes of that, but we'll get into that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's weird. It's usually winter meetings are full of rumors and nothing ever comes of them.
Yep.
And I think this year is going to be less because it's a lot of in those winter meeting rooms. A lot of it is these people are just putting rumors out to try to gauge interest, to try to gauge trades, and nothing really ever comes. I remember the Mets a couple years ago had a big trade option. I think it was for Elvis Andrus, who's a friend of the podcast, friend of Bob's.
Big friend, yeah.
Friend of producer Bob's, who's not here with us again, but we'll talk about that later. So the winter meetings are always kind of eventful, but not eventful at the same time. And a couple things happened this week. The non-tenders, or the tender market, we should say. Cubs went a little rogue. They get rid of Schwarber, who was due to make $9 million at most. That would have been his, because I think his arbitration number, his number was around 9. So it was about where he would have been. Interesting decision, unless they have a plan on bringing him back on a multi-year deal with a lesser per year. But I think Schwarber is the perfect guy for a team that needs a DH, and they'll spend $10, $12 million on a guy like him.
Yeah, the key is, and that's going to be an issue this week going into the winter meetings, that might be a big thing on the plate of discussion, is what to do about the DH in the National League. If they're keeping the DH, then maybe you bring Schwarber back, because he's basically built as a DH. That's where he'd fit in best. He's not the most speedy, the most athletic guy that can, track down fly balls in the outfield. You could stick him at first base, but that's not really a natural fit. So, and they obviously have Anthony Rizzo. So it's a matter of where you can stick him in a lineup. And there's been a few rumblings here and there about maybe him being on the Yankees' radar, which doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. I get that he could be like a DH off or another bat. He'd be a perfect bat for Yankee Stadium, but Giancarlo Stanton's the DH. Like that's not really changing.
Yeah. I mean, Schwarber does have the ability to play a nice outfield. He played really good outfield before the injury. If you remember, he ran into a center fielder, I think, that took out his knee and kind of set him back. But the Cubs are weird to me. I know their time of peak is definitely winding down, but I thought they had one more year in them of pushing for it, because next year to free agency, they're going to have Bryant going to free agency and Baez going to free agency. I believe their numbers are up next year. I think they're both done with arbitration. So, of course, you're probably not bringing both of them back. If you do, completely different story. You've then extended your peak.
Also, Schwarber played in 59 of the 60 games last year, regular season-wise, and he did not have a great year. 188 batting average, barely over 300 on base. It was just a really down year. And obviously, there are a lot of different situations that may have caused that for this season. Obviously, the whole COVID thing, shortened season in general, maybe, that caused issues leading up to getting in shape. So who knows? But especially with all of that in the background, you can't really, if you're the Cubs, necessarily tie up $9 million in Kyle Schwarber.
And the perks of him, he's got to look at this as a positive now too. Let's just say the Cubs offered him, they did this to give him a multi-year deal, which I've heard a couple times now, and it's $8 million a year. They save $1 million. I don't know. Let's talk about that for a second. If you're him, you have to almost not want that. You have to bet on yourself a little bit here. Sign a 1-year deal somewhere. You should go to a team that's going to be friendly to the way you hit the ball. I think a team that sticks out to me is the Rays. If he goes on a 1-year deal, they could teach him all the statistics they have there, and I think he would mash. Play in Yankee Stadium a couple times a year, play in Baltimore, play in Boston, just places that he can hit. And I think that's a value builder because he has power. Teams are going to pay for power. They're going to he will have a job for the next 10 years if he wants one, just because he has power.
Yeah, he definitely needs to be in a hitter's ballpark. And like you said, he could have a job for the next 10 years. He's only 27. So it's not, this isn't like he's 33 and he is what he is. He still has time to figure it out. And yes, the Cubs can't really necessarily throw him a long multi-year deal knowing how he performed last year. But at the same time, that might be good for Schwarber, gamble on himself, go to a hitter's ballpark, which really, I don't really get into the details of what a hitter's ballpark versus what a pitcher's park is, but as far as I know, Wrigley isn't really a hitter's ballpark. So maybe a change of scenery could be good for him, especially if the DH rule goes away.
I think a change of scenery could be really good for him. Like you just said, I think it would be huge for him. I love his swing in the Bronx. I think his swing, his fit would be nice, but I just don't know where he fits unless Stanton has the ability to play the outfield still, or Schwarber can play the outfield. But then you're cutting time from a guy like Frazier,
King Clint
or Hicks. You know what I mean? Or if you're saying Schwarber could play first, Voit. So regardless, it's not a need. I could understand if the market really dries on Schwarber and you can get him on a 1-year, $4 or $5 million deal, and from let's say a month from now, then I can understand it. Because then you can use him for $4 million. He could be a guy that plays 95 games and is a great pinch hitter off the bench. You can use him as that for that money.
Yeah, there are a variety of ways it could go with him. I think I would wait it out a little bit.
Yeah.
If I was him, especially wait through these winter meetings. We know a lot, not necessarily a lot goes down in these winter meetings, but teams start talking now. It's kind of the facilitator. Usually the winter meetings are kind of the moment that we go, okay, we kind of close the book on 2020 or the previous season, and we're starting fresh going into the new year, and teams are thinking about getting the ball rolling for spring training. So should be some interesting stuff to come out of this week. I think we got, although it seems like years ago at this point, I believe it was this week last year that the whole Garrett Cole thing went down.
Yeah. I think it was either during or right before the winter meetings. Like days before. I mean, like not like I think it was very close, but or it started to escalate. You have a couple periods coming up. You have after these winter meetings are over, you have a 2-weekish period before the holiday break. So teams take a break around Christmas. I believe not just teams. I don't think you can make a move the week of Christmas from that Monday to whatever the days of the week are for Christmas this year. You cannot make a move in that time frame. Same thing with Thanksgiving, I believe. A lot of sports do that. So the period is the teams may rush to make a move before the holiday because then the moves get quiet and you could be looking at guys without saying it publicly still. They're going to be working. And then the period right after, because right after that, you're talking beginning of January, you're only about a month and a half out from reporting.
Pictures and catchers mid-February. So you want to get you want to get your ducks in a row, and especially with everything going on, you really want to make sure you have your ducks in a row. So,
and there's a big with the market. It's depending on these big name guys. So you're not going to see. Everyone talked about the interest the Mets had this week in James McCann, which I think at first I thought was real. Now I think it's a shadow for if they have interest in Real Muto, showing them that they have options. I think because I don't know, but regardless, I think it's going to take Real Muto to sign for any of the other catchers to get moving. It's going to take Bauer to sign for any of these other pitchers at his age to get moving. Besides Morton, of course, the market needs to set. Same thing with George Springer. The market's going to have to set by a big name guy, DJ LeMahieu, to get everybody else's numbers in the row. Because let's just say the Mets signed James McCann today they talked about a 4-year deal. So let's say they talk about a 4-year, $40 million deal, $10 million a year. And then, but let's just say, and then Real Muto comes out next week and signs a $28 million a year contract. Now you're saying Real Muto is $18 million better than James McCann? That's not probably. No. I don't think that's true. So that's why these guys who aren't the top guy are going to wait for that to sign. You saw that last year with Garrett Cole. You didn't see it 2 years ago with Manny and Bryce because they waited a really long time to sign. But I think that's what's holding him up right now.
That's where you get these inflated contracts a lot of times where, no offense to James McCann. If James McCann wants to come on the show, come on the live stream right now and talk about his free agency, we'd be happy to have him. But like you said, if Real Muto signs first and he gets 25 mil, it kind of changes things for a guy like James McCann. He can't go necessarily take a 3-year, $24 million contract. He has to put himself in a position where he goes like, maybe, okay, I'm worth half as much on the open market as JT, which the catcher market is always interesting because part of the game with catchers is also there are a lot of parts of being a catcher that aren't necessarily easily shown in a stat sheet. How you manage a pitching staff, how you get along with certain pitchers. We saw this year with Kyle Higashioka on the Yankees. He kind of brought himself into the fold, and then the hitting came after because he had a previous relationship with Garrett Cole. They go back to their high school, basically Babe Ruth ball days where they've known each other for a long time playing whatever in the California leagues. So all of that plays into consideration with catchers, and you got to drum up the value the way you can, any way you can.
And I think the Mets are in a spot too where I think the Mets in general control the market. I feel that strongly because I think a lot of teams are looking, a lot of agents are looking at Steve Cohen and saying, he's got all this money. Let's just wait to see what he offers us. So I think the Mets are going to have final say on a lot of guys. I think keep a couple guys out like a DJ LeMahieu. If he gets the deal he wants from the Yankees, he's not calling Steve Cohen and saying, what do you have for me? If he gets a deal he wants, he'll go back to the Yankees. But
which, breaking news on the DJ LeMahieu front.
What's that?
Aaron Judge.
Oh, God.
On Aaron Judge's Instagram story, or on DJ LeMahieu's, maybe not his Instagram story, but DJ LeMahieu was pictured or posted a picture somewhere of him using an Aaron Judge bat. And then Aaron Judge reposted it, just playing the social media game a little bit.
I don't think there's a question that DJ wants to come back. I just think he knows that his level of wanting to come back, the Yankees are going to have to offer him what he's worth. He's not taking a discount, I don't think. But as long as he gets what he doesn't need to get blown away. But if he gets what he deserves, I don't think there's a question he'll be back in the Bronx.
I think the negotiations will play out similarly to how we played them out.
Yeah, I think he returns still. We played them out that way. I think that was a fair way. But there's some teams that, I mean, the Mets are in a spot when you look at the catching situation. Yeah, we would love Real Muto. We'd even love McCann. But if we had a fallback plan to fall back on Wilson Ramos for a 1-year deal, and we still signed Springer, and let's just say we picked up Bauer, let's just say, you're putting yourself in a spot where Ramos is a fine 1-year deal. You don't have to overpay on a catcher unless you really like the guy. So I'm just excited as a Mets fan. I think the market, just the fact that we're in these talks, and every talk seems to be centered around the Mets. There was a report today that Bauer and his agent love New York, and they love the idea of coming to the Mets. So that is something that would.
Yeah. I think
would,
Bauer gets done this week.
I think it's coming to a head a little bit. I think you're hearing here and there things. I also heard today Andy Martino of the SNY. Oh yeah. He was on a podcast, and it's called Talking Mets, and they were talking about Springer, and he said the Mets are very, very in on Springer. He's the one I've told you that we've talked off the podcast multiple times. If I had to give you one person I think was coming here, it was George Springer. I think his natural fit amongst where he lives, amongst everything, it just makes so much sense not to happen.
Blue Jays supposedly very in on him too. As we know, he is the Connecticut cowboy.
Yeah, the accent, that was great. I think the Blue Jays are going to, much like our negotiations have been, which we'll get to in a couple seconds here. I think they're going to be in on a lot of players. I think they'll miss. I think they'll miss on a lot of those players, but I think the fact that they'll be in those discussions is a good thing for Toronto fans. But I don't think they get a lot of them unless someone's market comes down to them, per se. Like if, let's just say the Mets got Springer and Bauer. Let's say the Phillies really had no money, couldn't bring back a Real Muto. The market starts to lower into the Blue Jays facility. So we will see. One rule I want to say before we get into the free agent negotiations, as we always do, Todd likes to do accents. I am going to say now I will not allow Todd to do a Marcell Ozuna accent.
No, today I'm playing the role. It's all business.
Okay,
I'm playing the role of we are the Daily Sports Network. I'm the agency. I'm the agent representing Marcell Ozuna.
Oh, so you're not the player anymore?
No, I am the agent. Fair enough. We're all business.
Fair enough. I think that's great. So we just said it. Marcell Ozuna is going to be our first guy today. Some of the ones we've signed already. So Trevor Bauer, we have him going to the Mets, 7 years, $230. I think there's an option at the end of that. House in the Hamptons included.
House in the Hamptons.
DJ LeMahieu, 5 years, $120. And that is I think that's straight. There was no option. I think that was straight.
I think we settled that there would be no option there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that conversation is actually going on right now with the Yankees.
Yeah, I think so.
That fifth year.
Last week we had George Springer, 6 years, $190. That was definitely a 6th-year option, and I think it was a massive 6th-year option.
Yeah.
I think it was a $40 million 6th year. I think it came out to 5 years, $150. Final year, if he vested, would be the $40 million year. And then JT Realmuto, 6 years, $180 to the Phillies. That negotiation was pretty much the Phillies bidding against themselves, and they got it done. So proud of them. So this week we're going to have Marcell Ozuna and Liam Hendricks and possibly a third mystery guy. I'm not going to break his name just in case we don't get it. So we'll start with Marcell Ozuna. Todd's going to play the part of Marcell Ozuna's agent.
Yep.
All right, first call. Oh, this is also based off of, just for the record, this is based off of the National League having the DH, which I think is still going to happen. We're going to base it off that because I feel like for a guy like him, you have to go one way or the other. So Marcell Ozuna, we'll start first call. It's the Atlanta Braves. Todd, how's it going today?
Hi, I'm Todd. I represent from the Daily Sports Network. My client, or maybe we do Paul Heyman. My client,
Oh God.
Marcel Ozuna.
I don't think we need that. I think you, your client Marcelo Ozuna. All right.
Yes,
So listen,
he was like top 5 MVP candidate this year.
he was
Was
awesome.
one of the finalists for the MVP award, or at least if he wasn't, I forget now. If he wasn't, he should have been. 29 years old. He's coming into his prime. He's had put up numbers year after year. OPS plus 175. Obviously, we all know as baseball experts that the average their OPS plus is 100. He finished 6th in the MVP race this year, which quite frankly is a crime. Led the league in total bases, led the league in homers, RBIs, and the National League side. All of it. Was
Listen,
healthy, played 60 games. There's not much of a bigger value in baseball right now on the open market. What's your offer?
We appreciate Marcelo so much. We had him for the year. We loved him here. We love what he did here. Came here on a great contract. We got the most out of him, and we think with the advancement of the National League DH is going to be awesome for a guy like him to do both things: play the outfield, play DH. So we're open to everything with him. We are open to a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal, a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal, whatever Marcel's comfortable with. We do know he has a history of being comfortable with 1-year deals and short-term deals. Don't know where his head's at now. So our starting offer, we're going to kind of cut it here. We'll go 2 years, $50 million. So 2 years, $25 million per year, which is near double what he made last year.
Guys,
We think, yes.
Marcel was one of the best talents in baseball this year. Better than George Springer was. And George Springer got 6 years, 190 from the Mets, and he's older.
So it's hard for us to compare George Springer and Marcel. George Springer is a guy who can play the field 162 games a year.
I played 60 games. Previous year, let's go back. Played 130 games
In the field?
148. Well, yeah, it was in the National League and there was no DH. 148 in 2018, 159 in 2017, 148 in 2016.
How many?
So past 5 years, I've barely missed any games.
Okay, but at the same point, is there any argument that George Springer is a much better defensive center fielder or defensive outfielder than Marcel is?
I'd have to look into the statistics surrounding that, but the cost value of what I bring or what my client brings on the offensive side of the ball, and the fact that he's coming into the prime of his career right now, whereas you're signing a guy like George Springer to and this has been throughout the market, a 5-6 year deal.
I would like to also make it known that us, the Atlanta Braves, did not offer that much money to George Springer. You keep saying the Atlanta Braves did not pay that much money for George Springer. I want that known.
Well, what I'm saying is that as Marcel Ozuna's agent, I could go to, say, the Mets or another team that has significant money and pretty much get a fair market, or what I assume to be a fair market deal.
So this is what we're going to say here in Atlanta. We love Marcel. We love the relationship we've had with him and hopefully continue to have with him. Our offer could be any amount of years he wants, 1 through 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We will offer $25 million a year. That is the highest we'll go unless you come back to us saying X team offered this. We will try our best to match any offer to keep him here long term because we do enjoy him. But we're not gonna work against ourselves, and we're not gonna put different contract offers out there against ourselves. So we love the idea of the free agency process and going to talk to other teams. But we hope with the respect we gave you, giving you that 1-year deal last year, and you being the guy for us amongst all these guys on this team, that you will give us a chance to match anything.
I will give you guys a chance to match anything, but I'm going to be shopping my client around pretty heavily because even in my fantasy team, as his client, I still had a fantasy team. The Daily Sports Network Fantasy League, Yahoo Fantasy League, Marcelo Ozuna was one of the top players. He led me to the championship game where I lost to producer Bob, who's not listening to this stream. But he was a key contributor in almost every fantasy league. And not that fantasy is reality, but stats don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Numbers never lie. I think that was a plug. There was a segment years ago on SportsCenter called Numbers Never Lie.
It was a
That's
show
right.
called, yeah.
So I'll be shopping them around.
Yeah, and that's fine. So we'll talk to you ASAP, and we'll get back to you. Great. Toronto Blue Jays are calling. How's it going, Todd?
Hi, this is Todd from the Daily Sports Network Agency, representing my client, Marcelo Ozuna. How are you?
Great. We've been talking to a lot of free agents through this process, and we hope we can get a guy like Marcel in here. We think he fits all the facets of us. So our standing offer is 5 years, $125 million. Comes out to $25 million a year. 5 years. We think that's a great number for him. And we think that fifth year is something we could definitely sustain here in Toronto. We have some young pieces coming up. We think this is a great situation for both parties, and we would love to have him in Toronto.
Where do you think he fits in that outfield?
Well, we pride ourselves in Toronto on having versatility. We have the ability to play him in left. We have the ability to play him at DH. We have a bunch of guys in that outfield already that can DH. Some of those guys, like Lourdes Gurriel Jr., can play second base. Some of our infielders can play outfield. We just have so much versatility. Something that we learned from watching. I know people hate them, but we've watched the Houston Astros do it. The Tampa Bay Rays do it.
I would never want my client on a cheating baseball team. So,
well, thank God we didn't cheat. But my point is, sort of like the Cubs. We can use the Cubs. They have a lot of versatility all over the lineup, and we think that's huge, especially in this tough division. So, yeah, we think you fit perfectly in this lineup.
Could you repeat the number value of that offer? I just want to make sure, as I'm pulling up numbers here.
Of course. 5 years, $125 million, $25 million AAV. We think this is the market for a guy like Ozuna and his skill set. And like I said, we would love to have Marcel here for 5 years.
Why do you think it didn't work out with George Springer? Do you think it was the offer you put on the table? What do you think caused that?
We think it was the Mets. We think the money, and they're at this point where they're getting a little free agents really just want to go there. And it's kind of hard to beat that at times. And also George is he's from that area. He's from Connecticut, so he's closer to there. It was going to be
He is the Connecticut Cowboy.
Yeah, he is.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, so, that's why I don't think it worked out.
Fair enough. And with the young pieces that you have, where I'm coming into the prime of my career right now, or not me, my client, Marcelo Ozuna.
I know.
And he wants to be in a winning situation. And what he has in Atlanta with how the NL East is kind of playing out and how those teams, a lot of those teams are, with the exception of the Mets, are in kind of interesting situations where they could go one way or the other. We think we know where teams are going, but that could kind of flip. And the National League, besides the Dodgers, is kind of looking for that second team. And the Braves might be that second team right now. The Padres might be as well. So maybe my client will be hearing from the Padres. I don't know yet. We're open to all calls. But I want to be on a team that's ready to win now.
Yeah, and we think we're kind of there. We think as much as we have young pieces, we think we have the ability, if we add the right veteran pieces like yourself and like maybe another guy we can bring in at the pitching level or relief, to get us to that next level. So we think the young pieces are just ready for you to come in and we can really grow this whole process.
Would you be willing to come up to an average annual value of $30 million?
Without seeing an offer of that money, it's going to be hard for us to come that high. We would love to, but at the same point, we don't want to overextend in dollars based off of no other offer.
Well, then I might have to call my Uncle Stevie. We'll say.
These free agent players, you guys just can't call Uncle Stevie every time.
I'm an agent. I will
true.
be at the winter meetings this week virtually. So maybe
Virtually.
tomorrow I'll have a call with Uncle Stevie, see where he's at.
Okay, so 5 years, 125. And we hope to hear back from you, Marcel. Toddy.
Absolutely.
By the
Yes.
way, we were me as the Toronto Blue Jays, we were just watching Monday Night Football, the first game, and we were crazy to find out that the Washington football team just beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So,
Oh, wow, that happened?
yeah, that was pretty wild for the Toronto Blue Jays to find out as we were on this call.
Wow.
All right, team number 3. The San Diego Padres are calling Marcel Ozuna. Oh, no. Well, technically. Todd, how's it going today?
Hi, this is Todd from the Daily Sports Network agency representing my client, Marcel Ozuna. How are you today?
We're awesome. We're awesome. We think the world of Marcel Ozuna. We love his style of play. We think he is a great player, and we want him here in San Diego. We think the perfect offer for a guy like him at 30 years old. We like the idea of letting you get to that next contract and getting one more out of it. So our offer is a 3-year deal worth $27 million a year, would come out to 3 years 70. That's not right. 3 years 80. 3 years 80. And we think that is a perfect spot for Marcel. We think he likes the shorter term deals at times. And we think that is a perfect number for him. So we are open to talking about it, but we really think this is a spot that we can get the most out of him.
I'm going to ask you guys the same thing that I've been asking every team. Do you guys think you're in a win now mode? Where do I fit in with the team as a whole? And kind of similar to another team that called me, the Toronto Blue Jays. You guys are young. I'm not sure if you're fully there yet. And my client is still being courted by the Atlanta Braves, where he was before. And they're in a pretty good situation where they're built for sustained success.
Listen, we think we're right. We think we're there. We made the playoffs. We played a tough team in the Dodgers, and we fought hard in that series. We did. We got the nickname of Slam Diego last year, which was it was a fun summer if you had the chance to watch. We had a blast with it, and we think Marcel would just do wonders with this team. And, yeah, we think we're there. We think we can compete with the rest of this division, especially Rockies, Diamondbacks, those kind of teams. We think we're right there with the Dodgers. We think the guys who brought in the pitch, we just think we're there. So, we think we're ready.
Yeah, just a lot of things that have been brought to my attention in terms of questions about my client's defensive abilities. Last year, in terms of total WAR, which obviously total WAR is a combination of D-WAR and offensive WAR, he ranked 14th in all of baseball. That includes pitchers. He was ahead of guys like DJ LeMahieu, guys with better reputations. Even guys like, you have Gold Glove winners in there like a DJ LeMahieu. He was on par with Manny Machado, Mike Trout, Jose Abreu, DeGrom. He was one of the premier players in baseball last year. and he's coming into the prime of his career. And I'm just not completely understanding why he's not getting an offer like a guy like George Springer would be getting, who doesn't show up in the top 30.
Yeah, we understand that. Again, we didn't make that offer to George Springer. So
George Springer ranks 42nd in WAR last year.
like we said again, we're dealing with the client we have in front of us, and we can't control what Steve Cohen he decides to do. He's a wild child. He's the wild child of the owners, and we can't control something like that.
Well, maybe, just maybe, Uncle Stevie pulled the trigger too soon. Maybe he set the market too high.
You could tell him that if you like.
I will call him up and ask him what the deal is.
For us in San Diego, we think a 3-year deal with 27 AAV is a great number. We can even come up to the 4th year. We can come up to 4 years if you wanted to. That would come up to 4 years, $108 million, I believe.
Interesting. I'm listening.
So 4 years, $27 million a year is the point, and we think that's a great number for you. So 3, 4, even if you want to take that 27, or honestly, we know you love that number of 30. You keep talking about that number of 30. So if you wanted us to get a $30 million deal, we could do a 1-year deal for you. And we know you like those. You've done a few of those. So if you want to make $30 million for 1 year, we are okay with that, and we can give you 1 year at 30.
I'm at a time, I think I couldn't have had a better year necessarily than I did last year.
Yeah.
Statistically, in terms of my team, also, obviously we didn't win the World Series, so maybe not the best possible, but I was a key contributor on a winning team, a team that won their division and pushed the eventual World Series champions to the brink. We gave them arguably their biggest fight in the playoffs. So, with that being said, I'm in a position where I might want to cash in and have not necessarily a 5 or 6 year deal because I'm still 29. So another deal could be a contract within my prime. So I'm thinking in that 3-4 year range.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, we have no problem giving you the 3-4 year deal. We just it won't be the 30 million AAV. We think you cutting back the $3 million per year is going to buy you the insurance of the extra years. So we have all the options on the table for you. If you want 27 million a year or 27 million a year, it would be 2, 3, 4 year deal. $30 million we could do for 1 year. We could sign that today. So that is your call. We think there's a great group of guys here to come play with Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado. We think you'd fit right in. So we hope to hear back from you.
Absolutely. So final offer is a 3-year deal.
I mean, the base of the offer is a 3-year deal at 27, but if you wanted 4 or 2 at that number, we are more than okay with that. And if you wanted 1 year at 30, like we said, so that's kind of our final offer is all 4 of those, if that makes sense.
I think I like 3.
Okay, so we'll settle in on 327 per year, and that's where we'll go from here. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Sounds good. Final team calling is the Boston Red Sox. Toddy, how's it going today?
Hello, this is Todd from the Daily Sports Network, representing my client Marcelo Zuna. Who am I speaking with today?
I don't remember. Chaim Bloom. Is that correct?
Chaim.
Chaim Bloom. Yeah, Chaim Bloom.
So, how's it going with the Alex Cora? You guys, I hear you guys employ cheaters.
We're happy to have him back. We think he is a great piece to this team, and we understand that everyone makes mistakes, and we hope for the future that he will remedy that and continue to be the model that we want him to be for the younger generation.
Well, I'll say this. My client likes the idea of being on a team that wants to win and wants to get back to winning and has a history of winning, which obviously you guys went 86 years without winning, but you've fixed those issues now. You've had success in the past decade or so. Won the World Series 2 years ago. What went wrong with Mookie Betts, and why did you guys, or maybe not you because you weren't the GM, but what went wrong there?
Well,
why is he not in a Red Sox uniform right now?
Multitude of things. We tried to send some offers. They were not where, and like you said, this was before I got here. So the offers that were sent were not up to snuff for a guy like Mookie Betts. And I can't control a lot what happened. I think there was an issue financially, which I believe, to my knowledge, has been remedied to a certain extent.
To your knowledge, you're the GM.
Listen, I'm the general manager. I hear what I hear from the ownership. But in full transparency, I think, like I said, I feel that they have been remedied, and we hope that that is the best option. So, with that being said, our offer here would be 2 years, $60 million. So $30 million per year for the two. And we like the short term just based off of what we have going on with the team right now. We're going to have to sign some bigger deals soon. Again, and we'd love you to be part of this. And we'd also love to throw in a third-year player option or a vesting option. We could do a third-year vesting option, maybe based off incentives or based off of us kind of mutually agreeing this is the right situation. Based off of incentives, we can work something out. And that third year could be worth 30. So we'll do this. 3-year max value of $30 million a year, and we'll throw some incentives after year 2 to get to year 3.
So is there any way with that, just the value, and I've been telling this to every other team, George Springer, and you don't want to answer it, so don't, but George Springer got 30 plus mil for 6 years, and he's 31. He was 42nd in WAR this year. I was 14th, or not I, my client was 14th, 6th in the MVP race in the National League. And he's coming into the prime of his career. Why would you be hesitant to not just offer him 3 years straight? If you offered him 3 years straight, I would be able to get an answer back to you very quickly, and I could probably get him on the phone in a minute and sign that contract, or at least come to a verbal agreement.
So we could do the 3 years straight. We think we can work.
Wow, that was easy.
We just feel that the more we think about it, Marcel is a super. I mean, coming into this negotiation, Todd of the Daily Sports Network agency, we were gung ho on a 2-year deal, so we weren't opposed to a third year. We just wanted to give you the option for yourself as well as us. So after hearing you talk, after hearing what the things you've said, we would love to do a 3-year deal straight. And to answer your, I don't want to take that question and ignore it. To answer your question about Springer, in full transparency, we just felt, because we did offer him a similar deal that actually we are getting right now. To be honest, I believe we offered about $30 million for him too. So
for a longer
AAV, we think Marcel's a guy who relies on his power, and we think a guy like that transcribes more to I wouldn't say a short-term deal, but 3-4 year deal is about right. We think the idea of having George as a leadoff guy was a big thing. There's reason why we offered him that in full transparency, but we think that Marcel has a similar value in different sense, and we think he is just as good as a ball player and can fit right in this lineup.
So if you guys offer me or offer my client 3 years, 90 mil, first call I'm going to make after this, full transparency, is ring back the Atlanta Braves, and depending on the negotiations there, we will get back to you.
Okay, sounds good. We'll definitely I should say we hope to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, Atlanta Braves are calling. Toddy.
This is Todd here from the Daily Sports Network agency representing my client, Marcel Ozuna.
Yeah, how's it going, man? What have you heard?
So we got the 30 million AAV that we were looking for the amount of years we're looking for, which leaves Marcel in a great situation to really prove himself while still getting some financial security over these next few years for the chance that when he's coming into that second contract in the prime of his career, he can get another long-term deal, hopefully longer at that point. Hopefully he's 32 at that point. He gets a 5-year deal at that point, and we can really extend his value and his financial security. So we're looking for that $30 million number right now. And the Boston Red Sox have offered 3 years, $90 million. And I said to them, depending on how the conversations went with you, we would agree to that deal. But I wanted to give you guys the chance to present a competing offer, a legitimate competing offer.
So for us, there's two things about this. A, it's hard for us to come up to 30, but we can try our best to do it in one sense here. The third year is at 30 million is kind of a non-starter for us. We have no problem giving you 2 years at 30 if you'd like to come back and run it back with this team. We just have the situation where in 2 years we're going to have to sign Ronald Acuna, Ozzy Albies, keep you at 30 million, sign all these young stars coming up. Dansby Swanson will need a contract. Freddie Freeman needs a new deal next year. So things are happening, and we plan on signing them all. And we plan on having you with that team. We have no problem after 2 years coming back and saying, Marcel, let's run it back for another 2. Let's run it back for another 1. We love the player you are. So we can give you the 30.
I'm not Marcel. I'm representing my client.
We'll come up to the 30. Smack you through the phone. We'll come up to 30 million for 2. So 2 years, 60. And yeah, that's a deal we can do.
So I would like, or my client would like, the additional year of security. It sounds like we're not going to get there. So I think I'm going to hang up the phone now. He enjoyed his year in Atlanta. We had a great run. And I'm going to sign, or my client's going to sign with the Boston Red Sox.
We wish you the best, and we hope to deal with you somehow, some way in the future. We think you're a great guy, and we wish you the best.
Unfortunate. So my client's going to take his talents up to Boston.
Okay. Do you want to call Boston back, or are we just going
to? No, we don't have to call Boston back. We'll send them an email.
Cool. Marcel Ozuna, 3 years, 90, 30 a year. I think it's a nice deal for him. I think that was nice negotiations. I like the idea of me not budging on the Braves. I think they have a lot of money that's going to be outgoing in a few years. Like I said, Ronald Acuna, Ozzy Albies, Freddie Freeman needs a new deal. And all these pitchers, Sean Newcomb, not Newcomb, sorry, the pitcher I'm thinking of. Who's the pitchers?
Ian Anderson.
Mike Soroka, Ian Anderson, those guys, they're going to need a new deal. So I think there's too much money coming out. So I liked what I did there. All right. The second free agent here, Liam Hendricks. So, first call is from the Los Angeles Angels. Todd, how's it going today?
Hi, this is Todd from the Daily Sports Network agency, representing my client, Liam Hendricks, who was one of the best closers in baseball last year. And since he's become a full-time closer, not only this year, but last year, his ERA plus was through the roof. This previous season, his ERA plus was 2.35. Year before that, 2.37. It seems like Oakland finally figured out that he wasn't a spot starter or even a full-time starter or a long reliever. This guy is a closer, dominant closer. ERA great. Only gave up 5 earned runs all last year, and he's ready to sign a big contract because the closer market in baseball there aren't too many elite closers left. You know, we had a run, obviously, about 10 years ago where we had some really great closers in baseball. And because of how teams manage their bullpens now, there isn't necessarily a one stop go to guy who's going to be that closer every time. With kind of the analytics game that has come into baseball,
Mm.
guys like Liam Hendricks are not necessarily as appreciated as they should be. So he's looking to go somewhere where he can be that dominant closer, be appreciated, and not play any games in terms of situations that may cause him to not be in that closer role.
Yeah, there for us here in Los Angeles, there's no games. We want him as the closer. We need him. We need your client as the closer. The only thing I'll say when you talk about situations, I could promise you that in the playoffs, I can't always promise you that he'll be in there in the ninth inning, but I can promise you that he'll be in the highest leverage situation and we'll use him when he's needed. That's what in the highest possible point of that game, when the closer would be needed, he will be used. He's going to be the guy we rely on. That's what I could promise you. The deal we would like to offer is a 3-year, $45 million a year, $45 million contract at $15 million a year, which the way the closer market sets up is a very good number. And we think that is a great number for Liam.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great number too. I think the market for my client is going to be, in terms of the dollar amount, is going to be pretty competitive just because I'm the only legitimate closer on the market. So if you're a team that is looking for that piece, I'm your only option unless you trade or try and get a guy within your organization to become that, which is tough for a guy to do unless they've had that experience.
The only thing we'll say is, yeah, we completely agree with you talking about the market completely, because if you look around the league, a guy like Brad Hand got waived, or non-tender, whatever the thing was. It was waived because every team had a chance at him at $10 million, and I think Brad's a guy that could have been worth that, and they decided not to. So I think that tells you where the market's going a little bit. I think a lot of teams aren't necessarily using a main guy as their closer. That's not what they're employing at this point. But with that being said, we think the number is great for Liam, and we would love to have him here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and that's a fair market value along with kind of what the relief pitching market is at right now. You know, guys at the top of the market, 16 million, 15 million. You know, Kenley Jansen, who had an off year last year, makes 16 million a year and was basically pushed out of his closer role. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I think you could even argue that at this point, my client's more valuable than that, just based on his current 2-year run. But we'll shop around a little bit. I think he has the potential to be the highest paid reliever in baseball right now. So, and obviously that market will reset in coming years, but for this cycle, he may have that chance.
Absolutely.
So we want to achieve that for him.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon. Second team's calling. Oakland A's. Taddy, how's it going?
So what's going on with Billy Beane? I hear he's gone.
Yeah, he's gonna do some other ventures. He's got his hands tied in, and so we're gonna move forward. Billy will always be with us. He'll always be a guy
Billy Beane's always in your heart.
Always in our heart. But we are looking forward to bringing you back. We understand the limitations we have here in Oakland. We think we got the best out of you in Oakland. We think, and that's non-negotiable. We think we figured out who you were here. We turned you with yourself and us with our staff, turned you into maybe one of the most dominant closers in baseball. But like I said, we have our limitations. So our offer is going to be 2 years, $25 million. Comes out to 12.5 per year. We understand that we are not giving you the top offer. That needs to be talked about. We fully understand money-wise we're not giving you everything.
Could you repeat that number? I'm just in a little bit of shock.
2 years, $25 million, $12.5 million per year. We understand, like I said, we understand it's not the most you're going to get, but we think we got the best out of you, and we think we can continue that success with you. And yeah, that's just the best we could do at this point. We'd love to have you back.
So would you rather have, at that money, would you rather, and this is in theory only, obviously, would you rather have me or my client Liam, Zach Britton, or Andrew Miller?
You.
Okay. And the current market value there is that Zach Britton's making 13 mil this year to be a setup guy. And Andrew Miller is essentially a setup guy as well. So granted, they're both great. They're both dominant.
Yeah.
They both have been consistently great, although Zach Britton has had some issues when it comes to maintaining some unders in some games. So making sure that the over-unders hit for the loyal bettors. So yeah, I would like to see his value more than what a setup man is getting paid.
And we understand that. Just saying that we want Britain or want you, excuse me, doesn't necessarily mean we spent that contract. We didn't make that contract. Like I said, we understand the dollars and cents about this whole thing. But that is just the best we could do here in Oakland. So we hope something works out. We understand if it doesn't. We respect you. We think you've been a great guy for the community.
Yeah, I think in all honesty, guys, you're not going to be able to compete with the other offer I received from the Los Angeles Angels of 3 years, $45 million. So, see,
we respect that. We respect that. Thank you, man.
Bye.
Team number 3. I expected it to happen, by the way. Team number 3, Los Angeles Dodgers. Todd, how's it going today?
It's going great. This is Todd from the Daily Sports Network Agency, representing Liam Hendricks, my client. I see you're paying another closer right now. You're paying Kenley Jansen $16 million. So,
yeah, we're not worried about money.
Yeah, but I mean, what are you going to do with him?
He'll be a good 7th, 8th inning guy, preferably an 8th inning guy. I think the ability to have Kenley in the 8th and your client in the 9th is perfect. I think that is a situation where we could dominate the back ends of games. And we've talked to Kenley, and you saw it in the playoffs. His pride has been put aside. He can pitch when you need him to. So
play this situation out for me. My client has a run where he struggles. He has a 5-game skid where he blows 2 saves, or maybe he blows 3 saves. Who knows? And Kenley Jansen's been lights out. Are you going to pull the plug on me or my client?
Situationally speaking, we might. See, that's the full transparency, and I think any team that tells you they wouldn't is lying.
True, but if you're paying a guy to be that dominant closer, you want to give him a chance to figure things out. And the fact that you guys didn't let and I understand it's the playoffs, but you didn't really give your guy a chance to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know if it feels right here.
And I understand that. I think we like to ride the hot hand. We like to put guys in the best situation to succeed. And if that means the 6th inning of the game, bases loaded up 2 is where we need your client, we're going to use your client there. And we want to use him in the best possible situation. And yeah, we understand how agents feel about us, but that's what won us a World Series. So we're going to ride that. And that's what got us to 3 World Series the last 4. That's just how these things work. So we respect you, and we hope to bring you here.
Yeah, I'm looking for my guy to be the top paid, one of the top paid relievers in baseball, and also be in a situation where he's the undisputed closer. And kind of the situations that are playing out in the Dodgers organization with how you've treated Kenley Jansen after giving him a big contract, it doesn't sit well with me. or my client.
Yeah, that's very understood. Our offer would have been 2 years, 30, so it would have been 15 a year for 2. We think we could have had a deal here, but if you don't like the way we do things here, then that's fine also.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to regrettably pass here.
Sounds good.
This. So,
yeah, sounds good. Ta-ta. All right. Final team, San Francisco Giants. San Francisco Giants calling Todd. Hey, Todd, how's it going today?
how's it going, guys? As you know, my client's looking to be the highest paid reliever in baseball. You guys are in a situation where there are a lot of teams in the NL West. Not a lot of teams. There are 2 teams in the NL West who are coming into a spot where they could maintain a level of dominance at the top of that division for years to come. And you guys are used to winning. And my client wants to be in a position where he's in a winning situation and is the undisputed closer. So I think this is a situation where that could happen. You guys still have Buster Posey and guys lined up who you have money tied up to. And I think the history of the Giants franchise is one that wants to win and doesn't really necessarily look at rebuilding or necessarily going full tear down. It's more of a retooling. So
Yep.
I think Liam plays well into that.
Yeah, we think we think it's a great fit. We just missed the playoffs last year in a surprising year for us. We were 1 game under 500, which was awesome for us. I feel like we started a foundation here with certain players like Mike Yastrzemski. We thought they had great years. Donovan Solano was a great sign. I think the coaching staff has a good way of getting these guys ready to play. We think we need some help on the back end. That's not a think, that's a no, that's a need. We understand that. Our offer for you is 4 years, $60 million, $15 million per year. We think that is fair market for you, and we think you could be the guy that, without a doubt, whether it's game 1, game 2, game 3, the 3rd game of the regular season, a Saturday in March or April, whatever month, we think you are the guy in the 9th inning. There's nothing that changes that, and we will ride you until you break.
Yeah, guys. I mean, that's what I'm looking for here. You guys also have a decent pitching staff as it stands right now. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much. This might be the deal for me. I got 3 years, 45, or my client got 3 years, 45 from the Angels. So I think this adds that 4th year. I question the Angels and their ability to put together a winning product, and the track record of the Giants in terms of putting together a winning product is a little stronger. So I will give my client a call, and I think this is where he will end up signing.
Absolutely. We're very excited about that. We think, like we said, we think it's an awesome fit. So we look forward to it.
Great.
So you calling the Angels, or are we just going to send him an email?
Send him an email.
All right. So Marcell Ozuna to the Red Sox, 3 years, 90. Liam Hendriks to the Giants, 4 years, $60 million. I think that's fair value, and I think the Giants are a great fit for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their pitching rotation. Their pitching staff, in terms of their starters, weren't terrible. A couple high ERAs here, but a couple decent ERA pluses. Their closer was god awful.
Yeah,
10 ERA.
Who are they using? Reyes Maranta?
It says Trevor Gott.
Trevor Gott, yeah, they were using Gott. Yeah. I think no matter what the team is, anyone can use a nice closer to finish the games off.
Yep. And none of these guys are – it's not like he's coming in and replacing a dominant closer here. These are – Giants are a team with a pretty glaring hole there. So I think the deals make sense.
Absolutely. That's it for the mock negotiations.
Oh yeah.
That is it for the mock negotiations. As always, after the mock negotiations. Actually, this may be throwing something at Todd here, and we are live, so I hope he could just roll with the punches here. We always do our hot takes or hot thought process, what do you want to call it? I'll start it off. And this is, I'm going to say there's no advantage here because I just thought about this. He said the word hot take before, and it hit my brain that I wanted to do that on the episode. So I'm kind of flying off the cuff here too. I believe Todd said one before. I don't know if you remember saying it, but he could just recycle that if he really wanted to.
I would like to.
You know what? Then you go first. If you're going to recycle, then you go first.
Sure. First hot take: Trevor Bauer signs with the Mets. Happens this week.
Whoa.
I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take, but that's what's going to happen.
I would say this one for me is a lukewarm take, but to take. The Mets will sign Albert Almora, who was non-tendered by the Cubs, to replace the Juan Lagares, Jake Marisnick role in their outfield. Good defensive guy and could play late in the game. The Mets love to make defensive switches in the seventh inning to play defense. So I think that is my take. He signs with the Mets.
How many of these do we need? You catch me off guard with these.
We'll do two. Just give me one more.
Hot take.
I have my second one, so I'll go and then you can go.
Yeah. Give me a second.
The day after Trevor Bauer signs, I don't know when that is. The day after, Jake Odorizzi from the Twins will make his decision also. I think his decision is hinging on what the Mets decide to do with Bauer, and I think Odorizzi makes his decision within 24 hours of Trevor Bauer.
I will say White Sox get off to a terrible start. Tony La Russa gets fired.
You hate Tony
midway through the season.
You hate Tony La Russa.
Hate it. Absolutely terrible signing. I think Miguel Cairo will end up being the interim head coach at some time during the season. And on top of that hot take, they'll get off to a very poor start, and then Miguel Cairo will lead them to the playoffs.
Wow. A double-ended hot take for Toddy G. Toddy G, his favorite segment is history.
Oh, yeah.
Todd, do we got something today?
Yeah, I'm doing a little research here. A couple things. One thing that happened this week that is interesting that wasn't necessarily so long ago, but Jacoby Ellsbury signing that big deal. I think a lot of people, especially after the Red Sox had won the World Series that year, in 2013, that December, right after, Yankees signed Jacoby Ellsbury to a big fat contract. Obviously didn't work out. I believe it was like 7 years, 150. And yeah, wasn't the greatest contract that the Yankees had ever signed.
I feel like
go. No, you go.
The Yankees made that signing just to piss off the Red Sox.
Pretty much, yeah. And that was one of those signings where I think the Yankees were still in the mode that they could fix everything with money, and it obviously didn't work out.
Well, that was the year that they decided. I mean, hindsight is whatever. Who knows what the trajectory is? But that was the year they decided upon signing McCann, Ellsbury, and Tanaka instead of bringing back Cano.
Which
hindsight, who knows what happens with Cano? We can't really play that game, but
yeah,
you could play the other three guys.
McCann wasn't a terrible signing. That worked out in the short term. Mm-hmm. Other interesting one here, Mets and Expos agreeing on a deal in 1984 to bring Gary Carter to the Mets.
The kid.
Obviously, Gary Carter, right? The kid was a big part of the Mets World Series team in 1986. So
there was so many key moves in that 86 run. I mean, leading up to it years before, that led them to that, whether it was Gary Carter, whether it was Keith Hernandez, whether it was Howard Johnson. And every player they brought in just fit that role. If you watch that 86 Mets team, they were very, in the best baseball term possible, they were very physical. They were very, like, there was times where if you slid too hard into third base and Howard Johnson didn't like the way you slid, he would just attack you. And that was just the way they played back then. They'd take their 1-game suspension and they would move on. And you talk about the guys that were in that room: Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden, Keith Hernandez, Ron Darling, Gary Carter. I mean, Mookie Wilson. There was just so many guys in that clubhouse that I asked it when I had my Coach's Corner podcast. I would ask guys, if you could put yourself in one locker room ever, what locker room would you put yourself in? There were some cool answers. If I would ask on this podcast, it would be that locker room. I think the fun they had off the field is something we won't get into in a podcast, probably rated R.
Oh, that team was probably, I can't even imagine what went on in the 80s in New York with a team like that winning.
And winning.
It was probably the 77 or 78 Yankees on steroids in terms of what went on.
A team in New York in the 80s by itself is going to have a blast. Now imagine you add winning to that.
Yeah.
I believe in 88 or 87, they weren't far off either. They were pretty good in those years too. So, I mean, the fun they must have had, that team was probably.
And then the Wilpons came and ruined it.
That's the one thing I want to have. I talked about it before, but I want to have like my dad on the podcast do like a Jets or Mets timeline of history, and
for sure,
it'd be a blast. But yeah, that's fun.
One more bloated contract that happened. Red Sox in 2010 signed Carl Crawford to 7-year, $150. So kind of a ridiculous, not kind of, that's a very ridiculous contract. Well, that was that the year they signed Adrian Gonzalez too, and none of that really worked. They aborted really quickly and somehow rebooted everything in time for another World Series run, which you could see something like that. That's kind of been the Red Sox MO the past 15 years, where they're good for 2 years, really, really bad for one, good for 2 years, really bad for one. Just, I think from a money standpoint, they kind of don't. They're not necessarily in the Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, or Yankees, Mets, Cubs echelon of money, but they obviously have one of the biggest payrolls, so they do have money, but I think their ownership kind of plays the game year in and year out with structuring those deals. And I think they've learned.
They're the truest point of the word retooling, where they take that year and kind of retool what they have, and they come back usually pretty strong. So there's a part of me that really thinks this year could be very good for them, but I guess we'll wait and see what they do before I say anything more about that. And
Carl Crawford, one of my favorite players in MVP baseball 2005. If you could perfect the bunt, just bunt single down the third baseline, get him to first, automatic steal. It's over.
Yeah, Carl Crawford was fun. And I think what happened with Carl Crawford almost ties in to them not re-signing Jacoby Ellsbury.
Right.
Similar player in some facets.
They learned sooner than the Yankees did.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And you look now, that kind of player isn't getting that kind of money.
No.
I don't even know what you can compare. It almost compares to a younger Brett Gardner in a way, but Brett Gardner has more pop than those guys did.
I feel like Jacoby would be like Jackie Bradley Jr.
Yeah.
Right now.
Like the game for that kind of guy has changed so dramatically.
Right.
Where those guys now are just kind of like that fourth outfielder role that play very good defense, can come off the bench and steal bait. Like it's so different how they're used compared to just 10 years ago. And
Jacoby had a great run. I think if he stayed healthy, he would have been still a positive contributor. But
didn't he finish like second in the MVP voting?
Yeah, 1 year he was like...
Yeah, right before he signed. The year...
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just crazy the way the game is completely turned on those kind of players and just switched into really we're at a point where any smart team or team that thinks they're smart can make a move on any player they want and turn it into what they want. Like, there's no specific position or specific player that's getting the money over another position right now.
Right. A Jacoby Ellsbury can be pretty much any outfielder can be in the right system, can be worked into a Jacoby Ellsbury. It's a matter of can you guys or what guys can get. It takes talent to get beyond that.
Yeah.
Not that Jacoby didn't have talent, but the game has changed so much in the last 5 to 7 years that he wasn't necessarily in situations where, you know, they looked next level to see how he could improve in those areas.
Absolutely. That's another version of History with Toddy G.
Oh, yeah.
And that is another version of the On the Bump podcast, our
What a
first
show.
live podcast. And we hope as we get more into this, we will be able to dive a little more like with you guys and talk a little more amongst you guys, maybe have some. We have the perfect. I want to give a shout out to StreamYard, which we used for the first time today.
Shout out StreamYard.
They were awesome. It's the ability to add someone in here to interview for us as well if we would like to. It just gives us so much more flexibility. We're definitely going to do this more. It's easy enough for me to turn these into YouTube videos as well. So it all works out. So, Todd, thank you very much.
Always a blast.
And you guys will see this, as always, on Wednesday. And, College Football Unmasked this week has a big guest coming on. I spoke to our boy Ty Hayes today. If you haven't checked out College Football Unmasked yet, it's a great show. Doing great things over there. They have a big guest, I would say, from the Twitter realm coming on Thursday or Friday. I think they put it out Thursday. I think he had an issue this week, but Thursday is where they'll come out. So look forward to that. Look forward to the On the Bump podcast. Look forward to all the other content we're coming out with. And coming up soon, we will have some merchandise for the On the Bump podcast.
Oh, yeah.
We will open that store up and throw some. We have not thrown On the Bump merchandise out yet, so we'll be doing that. And yeah, enjoy your weeks, enjoy your weekends, and stay safe. Thank you.
Open call to any contributors in the baseball world in the Twitter sphere who want to come on our show right now or right in this format and start the conversation.
Absolutely.
Next week.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.